They say betrayal cuts the deepest, but revenge, cold revenge, has a sharper blade. Let's talk about Bola. The market buzzed with life as Bola wiped her sweaty palms on her faded wrapper. The sun blazed mercilessly overhead, but she didn't notice. Her eyes were fixed on the stack of documents before her. Land papers, her family's prized possession. The weight of her decision hung in the air like the thick humidity of the season. This land has been in your family for generations, the village scribe reminded her, his tone hesitant as he dipped his quill in ink. Are you sure, Bola? Bola swallowed hard, her voice steady but laced with pain. I'm sure. Femi needs this. It's our only chance. Femi had promised her the world. With his charm and bright eyes, he spoke of studying abroad, returning as a man of stature and transforming their lives. Bola believed in him. She loved him with every fiber of her being. She had sold everything, her jewelry, her mother's heirloom, and now the land her father had tilled until his hands bled. The scribe nodded and stamped the papers. The deal was done. Bola watched as the buyer walked away, her dreams of a better future for her and Femi clinging to the crisp naira notes in her trembling hands. She folded the money carefully and tucked it into a cloth pouch. That night, by the dim light of a lantern, she handed every last naira to Femi. He embraced her tightly, his voice filled with gratitude and promises of eternal love. Just wait for me, Bola, he said, his breath warmed against her ear. When I return, we'll have everything we ever dreamed of. Eventually, Femi traveled to study abroad, while Bola waited anxiously for her prince to come back for her. Months turned into years. At first, Femi's letters came regularly, each one filled with tales of his struggles and progress in the foreign land. Bola cherished every word, reading them aloud to herself at night. But slowly, the letters grew infrequent, and then they stopped altogether. Bola's heart ached with worry and confusion. She sent letters, but they rained back unanswered. She asked travelers returning from the city for news, but no one had seen or heard from Femi. Rumors began to spread in the village. Some said he had found a new life and forgotten his roots. Others whispered that he had married a white woman and abandoned his promises to Bola. Bola tried to silence the voices, but doubt chewed at her soul. One evening, as she sat by the fire, a neighbor brought news that shattered her world. Femi is doing well, the woman said, her tone laced with bitterness. My cousin who traveled said he saw him. He is living like a king, but it seems he has forgotten where he came from. Bola's hands clenched tightly around the edge of her wrapper. She wept. She wept bitterly. That night, something inside her broke. Love turned to anger, and anger to a boiling determination. 4 years had passed since Femi's departure, and the village had long stopped speaking of Bola. She had vanished without a trace, leaving behind whispers of heartbreak and disgrace. Some claimed she moved to the city. Others said she wandered the earth like a ghost, lost in her sorrow. So when Femi returned, striding confidently through the dusty market square in a tailored agbada, his presence stirred excitement and resentment in equal measure. Femi is back, an old woman muttered under her breath, her lips tightening as she watched him hand out crisp naira notes to children. The prodigal son returns, but not a word about Bola. Femi, however, seemed unbothered. He moved as though the past had been wiped clean, his focus on a new mission, finding a wife. I want a proper Nigerian bride, he announced to a group of men gathered under the ancient Iroko tree. Someone from my roots, who understands our culture and traditions. The men nodded in approval, their laughter echoing across the square. But in the shadows of a nearby stall, a young lady named Jumoke listened carefully, her face expressionless as she peeled an orange. Jumoke knew of Femi. Everyone in the village did. But what Femi didn't know was that she and Bola had grown to be close friends after he left. They had met in the city a year after Bola's disappearance, drawn together by shared struggles and quiet resilience. It was Bola who had confided in Jumoke, recounting her heartbreak and betrayal. And it was Bola who had planted the seed of their plan. One evening, as Femi strolled through the village, Jumoke accidentally bumped into him, spilling her basket of vegetables. "Oh, I'm sorry," she exclaimed, dropping to her knees to gather her scattered produce. Femi, ever the gentleman, bent to help her. "No need to apologize," he said, flashing his signature smile. "It's my fault for not watching where I was going." Their eyes met briefly, and Jumoke offered a shy smile. "Thank you," she murmured, before hurrying away, leaving behind just enough of an impression to pique his interest. It wasn't long before Femi began seeking Jumoke out. He visited the market daily, offering to carry her baskets and lingering longer than necessary at her stall. Jumoke played her part well, sweet, demure, and just a little hesitant, making Femi work for her attention. Over time, their interactions grew more frequent, and Femi became infatuated with her. He invited her to dinners, showered her with gifts, and spoke of his vision for their future. "I see potential in you, Jumoke," he said one evening, his voice low and earnest. "With you by my side, we can build something extraordinary." Jumoke smiled, her heart steady as she remembered Bola's words. "Make him fall, and when he does, take everything." As Femi and Jumoke's relationship deepened, whispers began to circulate in the village. Some spoke of the obvious love of Femi for Jumoke, while others wondered what had become of Bola. One night, as Femi walked Jumoke home under the soft glow of the moon, he paused abruptly. "Do you know someone named Bola?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. Jumoke hesitated for a split second before shaking her head. "Bola? No, I don't think so. Why?" "No reason," Femi replied, though his gaze lingered on her for a moment. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had seen flashes of Bola's spirit in Jumoke's mannerism, the way she tilted her head when she spoke, the way her smile lingered just a bit too long. But he dismissed the thought. Bola was a ghost from his past, and Jumoke was his future. As the wedding preparations began, Jumoke subtly gained access to Femi's finances. She convinced him to invest in a joint business venture, a fabricated enterprise she claimed would secure their future. Femi, eager to prove his worth and to please his bride-to-be, handed over large sums of money without question. And unknown to him, Jumoke got the password to all his bank accounts, ready to strike as soon as Bola gave her the word. Meanwhile, Bola remained in the shadows, orchestrating every move. She sent secret messages to Jumoke, reminding her of their mission. "Remember, he took everything from me. Now it's time to take it all back." The night before the wedding, Femi received an anonymous note. Its contents were chilling. "The past never stays buried. Meet me at the old bridge at midnight if you want the truth." Curiosity and paranoia galled at him. Against his better judgment, he went. Under the pale moonlight, he saw a figure emerge from the shadows, his breath caught in his throat as he recognized her. "Bola," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Yes, Femi," Bola said, her tone cold and deliberate. "Did you think you could escape what you did to me?" Femi stumbled back, his mind racing. I thought you were gone." "You abandoned me," Bola snapped, her voice rising. "You left me with nothing after I sacrificed everything for you." And now you come back to play the hero, seeking a bride as if the past never happened? Femi's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but there was none. Jumoke stepped out from the darkness, her arms crossed, her face expressionless. You were in on this? Femi stammered, his voice shaking. Of course, Jumoke said calmly. Bola is my friend. Everything you've given me, every naira, every promise, it's all hers now. And all the monies in your bank account now belongs to Bola. Bola took a step closer, her eyes locked onto Femi's. You are going to repay me, Femi. Every kobo, every ounce of dignity you stole. And when I'm done, you'll wish you had stayed away. Femi rushed and quickly logged into his bank account as soon as he went home. His money was gone. All of it. His bank accounts were empty, his debts exposed, and his carefully curated image as the village's golden boy lay in ruins. Word of Femi's disgrace spread like wildfire, each retelling of the story more embellished than the last. The children in the village, once in awe of his flashy cars, now jeered at him in the streets. Elders shook their heads in disapproval, muttering about the dangers of arrogance and the justice of the ancestors. Femi sat alone in his family house, his head in his hands, replaying every moment of the last few weeks. The signs had been there. The whispers, the silence, the odd looks that Jumoke gave him when she thought he wasn't watching. How had he missed it? How had he fallen into their trap? Femi was stuck in the village, unable to do anything and even unable to return abroad. One evening, 3 months later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Femi made his way to Bola's new house. She stood at the front, her posture regal, her expression unreadable. The villagers watched from a distance, their curiosity intense. Bola, he called, his voice hoarse. She turned slowly, her gaze piercing. What do you want, Femi? You have destroyed me, he said, his tone a mix of anger and desperation. Was that not enough? You've taken everything. Bola stepped forward, her voice calm but laced with venom. I took what you owed me. 4 years of waiting, Femi. 4 years of watching you live a life built on my sacrifice. Did you think there wouldn't be a reckoning? You've made your point, he said, his fist clenched. But this is too far. Bola's eyes narrowed. Too far? You don't know the meaning of those words yet. Bola stepped closer, her voice dropping to a chilling whisper. This is only the beginning, Femi. You'll carry the weight of what you've done for the rest of your life. Femi's breathing quickened as he tried to steady himself. You'll regret this, Bola. You and Jumoke will regret this. Bola smirked, her face unreadable in the dim light. We will see, she said. As Femi turned to leave, his head spinning from the conversation, the weight of his actions crashing down on him, he tried to push past the growing panic in his chest. He needed to get out, to find some peace. But as he stepped through the village's narrow dirt roads towards his home, the air felt thick, almost suffocating. His steps echoed loudly in the quiet night, the only sound breaking the silence. Suddenly, he froze. A sharp sound, like a twig snapping underfoot, echoed from behind him. His heart swayed and he spun around, but there was no one in sight. He strained his ears, trying to hear anything. A voice, a rustle, a movement. Nothing. It was nothing, or so he thought. Femi quickened his pace, but with each step, the unsettling feeling grew. He heard the sound again, closer this time. His breath came in short, panicked bursts. He broke into a run, but the footsteps seemed to follow. They were always just behind him, too close for comfort, yet no one was there. He reached his home and slammed the door behind him, locking it quickly. His hands trembled as he turned on the lights. The house was still. Too still. but the unease lingered in his chest. Just as he sank onto the couch, trying to catch his breath, there was a sudden knock on the door. Femi froze, his heart leaping into his throat. Who could it be at this hour? His mind raced. Bola? Someone else from the village? He stood, his legs shaky as he approached the door. He hesitated for a moment, then cracked it open, just enough to see who was there. No one. There was no one there, but there was something on the doorstep. A small black object, barely noticeable in dim light. Femi bent down, his fingers trembling as he reached for it. His stomach churned as he picked it up. A picture of him, taken from a distance. A snapshot of him standing in front of Bola's house earlier that evening, looking lost and defeated. And on the back, in bold, messy handwriting, were the words, "You should have stayed away, Femi. It's not over." He dropped the picture, his pulse pounding in his ears as he backed away from the door. Then from outside, he heard a whisper, low and eerie, just barely audible, like a voice coming from the shadows. "We're only just getting started." Femi's blood ran cold as the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance, and his entire body locked in terror. He thought his nightmare was over, but the truth was now clearer than ever. Bola's vengeance was far from finished, because now the real terror was just beginning. Dear viewers, betrayal may fade from the surface, but the scars it leaves run deep. And sometimes the price for our actions is far more than we can ever repay. If you loved this video, please make sure to like it and subscribe, and come back for more stories like this. Thank you.